Welcome to our daily market update on Thursday, the 26th of March. My name is Chris Marshall. I am Head of Investment Strategy here at Dragon Investment Managers. The past 24 hours have once again seen a landslide and plethora of market data, policy data coming through. Late last night or early hours this morning in the UK, we saw the US Senate approve this $2 trillion relief bill, which is really essential to assist and support so many thousands, hundreds of thousands of individuals, small to medium enterprises, as well as companies which are deemed to be national security essentials. Within the bill, of course, we have seen that there are direct cash payments to individuals. There's increase in unemployment benefits. There is a provision for tax deferral and loans to some of the most vulnerable small to medium enterprises. Over the past few daily market updates, of course, we've been talking about the three things which markets will really need to see before they can be fully confident that things will rebound. Right now, I believe we are seeing good moves towards two of those three things. The three things being that the financial system itself will not freeze up as it did in 07 and 08. That there is support, fiscal support for both businesses, corporations and individuals during these unprecedented economic shutdowns. And then, of course, the third being that we know kind of how long people are going to be isolated, quarantined, social distanced, and really kind of do we see an end to the virus. Now, those first two things I think we are starting to get a handle on. The financial system is improving. We saw early last week that there were dislocations in the market, that there were correlations have broken down between asset classes, really as fire sales were coming through. And there were fears that, of course, the financial system, just as it did in 07 and 08, would freeze up. And that would really cause a financial crisis. This is why we're seeing so much coordinated action between central banks. If we look to, again, the US, we've now seen with this Senate-approved relief bill, we've seen nearly $6 trillion of monetary and fiscal support come through. That equates to about 30% of GDP, which is really very, very unprecedented. And an extremely large in such a short period of time. The reason that, of course, the 07-08 great financial crisis happened was really the opposite direction, and it's worth just spending a second just understanding how this differs, this virus or this health crisis differs to 07-08. Back in the great financial crisis, of course, the recession started as a financial crisis. That is, there was a lack of confidence and there was a lack of liquidity, a lack of buyers within certain areas of the debt market, certainly within some of the areas of distressed debt or subprime loan markets. And this then really carried through into the real economy and had devastating effects there. This time around, of course, the reason for this economic slowdown is the virus itself. And while it will have extremely large economic impact, perhaps even more than the great financial crisis, what lawmakers, policymakers and central banks are trying to do is to prevent this becoming a financial crisis at the same time. Now, one of the key bits of information that we will be looking for today is the initial jobless claims number coming out of the US. And the reason that we're going to be paying so much attention to that is really an initial indication of well, how many people are being laid off already? What's this kind of the real economy impact of coronavirus in the US? We have seen, of course, the number of cases of coronavirus in the US steeply climb overnight. And one of the things which is kind of centered to our understanding from a financial and economic point of view is this initial jobless claims number. Now, Larry Kudlow, the chief economic advisor to the White House, did come out yesterday stating that we should fully brace for a horrific number, although he was not at liberty to say what that was. From the analysts that we go to and listen to, we have seen estimates anywhere between 1 million and 4 million new initial jobless claims. And the reason that we're paying so much attention to this is, of course, the larger this number, really it's an indication as to potentially how prolonged the economic slowdown, or kind of the sluggishness of an economic bounce back, could be on the other side once the virus and health issues are pushed to one side. Our thinking on this is essentially that the more people laid off, of course, there is then a delay and a snapback in economic activity is less likely if you have to go through both a hiring phase and potentially even a retraining phase if you can't simply re-employ the people that you've laid off. And this is where fiscal measures really are key, and why we've seen the UK come out with their 80% of payroll support program. I believe also later on we are going to see more fiscal measures come out from the UK surrounding support for self-employed workers, because of course we have a huge number of self-employed workers in the UK. We've seen other governments come out with variations on this theme, so potentially the government will pay 75% of a worker's pay and the company would be expected to pay 25%. And these measures are all really in place to try and make sure that the workforce is kept as a workforce, and so that when the coronavirus issues are pushed to one side, then the economy is ready really to come back. In terms of economic impact, we are going to see a huge write down on GDP figures, and the way that GDP is calculated, of course, is on an annualized basis, assessed on a quarterly period. So quarter over quarter, if we see a 15% decline in GDP from the previous quarter, then this of course would equate to, well, roughly a 60% decline in GDP annually, which are really quite scary figures to be dealing with. However, we still do hope that this can be a short, sharp recession, and keeping corporations alive, keeping them kind of on pause. And this is again where we come back to the policymakers and the relief measures which we see going on around us are going to be key to this. Now, in terms of the kind of the virus development, I'm certainly no epidemiologist, but it's encouraging to see the steps being taken by many companies and many governments around the world. We saw yesterday that Dyson have pledged to provide 10,000 ventilators to the UK for April. This is part of Boris Johnson's plan to get 30,000 additional ventilators in the UK within the next few weeks. And this is really where governments are grappling with combinations of isolation, quarantine, social distancing, to really try and lessen the curve of coronavirus development through the population, really to try and get the medical infrastructure in place. A step forward in this regard in the UK as well is, of course, the government's ordering of around 3.5 million COVID-19 tests, which apparently will be available through outlets and can then, of course, be done at home. And this is really part of the overarching theme of removing the fear of coronavirus. At the moment, of course, with very little testing going on, it's very hard for anybody to have any confidence of who has coronavirus, perhaps who has had coronavirus. Are people asymptomatic, or they are actually healthy and coronavirus free? And these things, as they kind of come through, I think are going to help alleviate some of those fears, the unknown fears which surround, of course, an invisible enemy such as a virus. But until we kind of see a lot more clearer picture, then our view is very much that we can't really expect markets to be fully confident and to adopt a risk-on approach. The couple of days of uptrend in the market, I think, have been off the optimism around so much fiscal and monetary policy, but until we can really start checking off where the economy can start going back to work, and where the virus has been contained to some degree, then we would still expect to see a lot of volatility in markets. We will continue to pick up positions as they come into value, or they come into our metrics. And we have deployed a little bit of cash over the past week or so as positions and opportunities have opened up. However, we do remain fairly defensive in our positioning at this time, and we will continue to do so until we really see the green light in a lot more areas for a signal that markets have indeed bottomed, and there is a definitive or defined plan for the economy to get back on track.